and welcome to Midweek Experiments in Faithfulness. This is a weekly facilitated spiritual practice with a Quaker flavor and an experimental ethos. My name is Jen Newman, and I am the Executive Director here at Beacon Hill Friends House, which is a Quaker Center for Learning and Action and a residential community of about 20 people who live according to Quaker values. And tonight we have with us Virginia Swain with the practice Reconciling Relationships and Building Trusting Communities. In this midweek practice, participants will be introduced to the practice of reconciliation leadership through an experiential exercise to engage in imaging and visioning developed by Quaker Elder and Peacebuilder Elise Boulding, one of the key tools of reconciliation leadership work. Virginia has asked that folks have paper and colored markers available for the exercise, so if you need a moment to get those, now is your time, friends. In this midweek, it's also going to be a taste of the New England Yearly Meeting Program in Reconciliation Leadership, which is committed to revitalize meetings post-COVID, which begins in early 2024 and is being adapted for friends from a leading at the United Nations for over 30 years. Now, I'm excited to introduce you to Virginia, although some of you already know her. Since 1991, Virginia Swain has developed a body of knowledge through prayer, reflection, study, and practice to educate a cross-sectoral group of reconciliation leaders. Founder and director of the Institute for Global Leadership, Virginia is an organization development consultant, mediator, ombudsperson, certified professional holistic counselor, mentor, and facilitator. So again, welcome. We are really happy you've joined us tonight. And Virginia, it is all yours.
Thank you so much, Jen. It's so nice to be here and so glad so many of you were able to come, friends near and far and people that I'm looking forward to getting to know. What Jen did not say is that 30 years ago, I was found clear at Friends meeting at Cambridge to go to the United Nations to start this program in reconciliation leadership. So now 30 years later, in gratitude and at 80 years old, I give it back to friends in the New England Yearly Meeting. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do that because there's a lot of similar things that we can use in with Quakers, but there's a lot of changes that I'm making in the program. We're starting a pilot program next week. If anyone's interested in joining, it'll be very interactive and a learning community. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll start with a centering practice that a friend of mine, many of you may know her, Paulette Meyer. She started this, she gave me this chant when she was moved to the words of Dag Hammarskjöld, "We all have within us a center of stillness surrounded by silence."
We all have within us a center of stillness surrounded by silence. This house, dedicated to work and debate in the service of peace, should have one room dedicated to outward silence and inner stillness. Join in this work of peace and enter this small room where doors may be open to the infinite lands of thought and prayer.
So this is the agenda for tonight. After the introductions, where we had the chant with Paulette, and I have some queries for you about reconciliation leadership. Then we'll do the imaging process, which is, I think you've all had a chance to get your colored markers and paper. Then we'll learn a little bit more about the New England Quakers Reconciliation Leadership Program, and Jen will do the closing. queries are, do you have a reconciling heart? Are you a spiritual, faith, or community leader wanting to learn how to reconcile conflict in family, community, national, or global challenges? Are you ready to gain experience based on your leadings and trauma-informed leadership from within? We hope to provide cohesion, social cohesion, for the challenges of our society and of our meetings. So we ask participants, and we trained participants to deal with conflict to strengthen our community's ability to discern, work, and act together, and teach a dialogue and conflict transformation process that leads to reconnection with self. So it's a process and practice that allows us to value one another and to realize that every person and perspective is important. So keeping conflict at a healthy level is really important. And how we have a lot of interaction about how to connect with your inherent goodness and become a co-creator with loving presence. And learning how to give feedback in a life-giving way that eliminates blaming. So now I'm going to ask you to consider the first step of becoming a reconciliation leader and having some experience with Elder Elise Boulding's imaging process. Elise was my mentor and teacher for many years. She always said that challenges can't be resolved at the level they were created. So the imaging process motivates behavior in the present by using images of the future. And tonight we're going to look at rebuilding and healing broken relationships with another person, a meeting, or the United States as our imaging process. So I'm going to give you a prompt to help guide your process. There'll be 5 minutes of quiet reflection after you have been in your imagination for a while to put your image and words on paper, remembering that it's not just images that you might receive, but also words, or maybe words instead of images. So imaging is not about art or technique, it's about using our imagination, using words and images that capture your imagination. So I'm coming back to the room, and I'm going to ask you to close your screen so that you have some quiet time for yourself while I lead you in a visualization to your imagination. You just notice your breathing in and out, and allow yourself to, with the in-breath, take in new life, and with the out-breath, release anything that's holding you back right now. So with the in-breath to bring in new life, and the out-breath release. In and out, in and out. Now see yourself on your path in nature. See yourself all by yourself on your path, and your senses are heightened. Your sense of smell is very acute, and you can smell the flowers. Your sense of sight has been heightened, and you see things even more acutely than usual. Your hearing of the bird song is so powerful and heightened. Your kinesthetic sense is shown when you touch a tree and you feel its bark so powerfully. So as you walk along your path, you're taking in everything at a new level. And notice that there's a little brook on your path, and there's some food on a table beside the brook. It's your favorite food, so you can partake. Notice that you could take some water. The water is very clear and clean, so you can take some water from the brook if you're thirsty. And soon you come to a hedge, and the hedge has a door beside it. And you notice that there's a key hanging from the knob of the door. So you open the door with the key, open the lock, and walk in through the door, through the hedge, to your imagination. And in your imagination, you are full of possibilities, things that are there that you couldn't possibly imagine. You see relationships that you have that may have been broken, repaired. You see hope from community relationships that have an ability to discern together and care for one another. And if you are wishing, you can also see the United States in its healing and away from all the divisions that you have known. So just take a look around and digest. You'll see, you may get words, you may get images, you may just have a sense of something powerful happening that only your imagination can reveal. You notice the way people are treating each other. You notice the buildings and the institutions may be different now. The way we do things may be different. In this reconciliation of relationships and communities. You see how trust is built. You begin to trust again if you have broken trust. And just be careful that you notice the words and the pictures that are coming to you and have them in your heart. As we look around, just put them in your heart to remember them. And take another look around. Make sure you haven't missed anything. And now, as you're preparing to leave your imagination, you know that you can take everything with you. As I mentioned before, you can put all the words and pictures in your heart so that you can put them on paper when we get back to the room. And now go through the door and the hedge, taking one last look behind you to make sure that you've captured everything. And start again on your path with your senses still heightened, smelling the flowers, hearing the bird song, smelling the roses, seeing the brook. As you go along your path, you realize now you are back in your chair. Your feet are on the floor and you feel grounded again. And take your paper and your colored markers and record the words and pictures that you saw. Friends, you have 1 more minute to finish your words or your image on the paper, and realizing that if you haven't had enough time, you can always finish it later. Just so that you record all the things you've saw in your imagination. And while you're finishing your words or your images, I'm going to read a query. This is from Faith and Practice. Do you foster the spirit of mutual understanding and forgiveness, which our discipleship asks of us? Remember that each one of us is unique, precious, a child of God. In what ways are you involved in the work of reconciliation between individuals, groups, and nations? Now, if you would come back to the room, turning on your screen, you had a snapshot of a three-part process that we don't have time to do the whole thing, but the first step is the imaging, and the second step was a timeline. The third step is an action plan. And I'll give you a prompt that could get you started on the second and third steps after we're done some sharing. If any of you got recorded anything, just to hold it up for just a moment, if you're comfortable with that. And if you're not, you don't have to. I just want to see if anyone was able to record anything, words or images, or if anyone would like to try it again with me, I'd be happy to do that outside of this time and space, so that you could try it again if you didn't have a good experience with it, if I went too fast. So I'm happy to let you try this in a way that is much more helpful for you. The second step of the three-step process is making a timeline backwards from your image. So let's take Glenna's image for just a second. Glenna, could you hold it up again? Your energy image. And just notice if you make a timeline backwards and for your action plan, what would be the first step that you might think of for this for your energy image, Glenna? What would that be? To make it more practical, to make it real in real time?
I really appreciate everyone's comments, which would help me to do that, because it reminded me about how overwhelming it was at first.
Yes.
You know, that it was a lot, and it was so overwhelming that I think both defensively and offensively, to use two terms of conflict. I was feeling conflict with so much happening, and I either had to, I felt the challenge. I think I realized this is a challenge, and how am I going to feel comfortable with this? And the only way I could was, I think, to take my own image, or to feel my own energy and know that that is within all the things that I'm feeling. And I had to say, including the buildings. And I would say, yes, including the buildings. So just give everything life, force, and energy.
Yeah.
And so my timeline was, is this what you're asking? The timeline?
I'm asking, what would be the first step that would make this practical, this energy?
What is it we have in common is that energy, and then trying to feel, let my energy in there, let me feel their energy, and try to just let it be around me. And then maybe I can be brave enough at some point to allow it to be part of me, to be lost in a dance of energy together. So that's how I can look at it practically, is if I look at you, Virginia, as one of these little twirls of energy.
Yeah.
And transpose you into something I recognize.
Okay, well, I think we'll go on and do the rest of the program now. This is the reconciliation leadership modules, program modules. The first module is reclaiming our goodness, naming and claiming our gifts and leadings. The second one is introduction to the practice of reconciliation leadership. And the third is new perspectives, awakening the unconscious to claim our true selves, build self-trust, and rebuild relationships. Learning how to introduce change in meetings, learning systems thinking, and learning communities. Learning from case studies, a practicum, and a monthly coaching program. So the module 1, recognizing your core gifts and talents, leadings, confirming your special calling and integrity, learning to access your deepest hopes and vision. And the second module is awareness of the competencies of reconciliation leadership. Become aware of the need to develop our spiritual muscle in order to be able to listen, hear, trust, and working co-creatively with loving power. Understanding how to build trust in oneself, as well as being comfortable with discomfort as a principle of growth. Recognizing unhealthy and healthy behaviors. Understanding the role of the unconscious as guide and teacher. Understanding our emotional triggers and withdrawing them if they're hurtful. Moving from blame to accountability. So now I'll show you that one of the modules is how to introduce change in meetings. And so many meetings are still kind of conflicted now because of post-COVID and other things that are going on in the world that are reflected in our meetings. And Kenneth Boulding, an elder, he was the husband of Elise Boulding, said, for a system to respond effectively to crises, the stresses must not exceed its strength. And often our meetings are stressed beyond our strengths. So we learn why systems are resistant to change and how to intervene and create a learning community. And then the last course of the pilot program will be looking at case studies, where the people most impacted by the challenge are key to the process. These are facilitators, reconciliation leaders or facilitators that help people themselves decide the answers to challenges. Here's a group of reconciliation leaders at the UN with a quote by Parker Palmer. Melissa Marsh, who's in the group here, she and I were in a program with Parker Palmer, a renewal for leaders a few years back. Here's some papers to read, and to apply for the pilot or field program, contact Nia Thomas. Here's some resources, some papers that I've written.
Thank you so much, Virginia, for that practice. I know for me, I was working through some of the pieces of where conflict is uncomfortable, or where my vision of what is possible or what I want it to be like seems like it's quite distant from what the next step is and the grief that might occur in that space. But I think that this practice, or what you're offering, allows us to kind of move through those things. And then it's not that we foreclose our working toward that future, but we need maybe, I don't know, community, spiritual practice, other tools and pieces to help us get toward that vision. So that was what was coming up for me, but I want to also just thank you for offering us that deep practice.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. And I want to let folks know, so a couple of pieces. One, so this practice, if you don't know, This practice of midweek as an event is a weekly series of the Friends House, and you can learn more about our upcoming events at the website bhfh.org/midweek, and I'm putting that in the chat. Next week's event is going to be led by friend Christy Randazzo, talking about sacred days and times. So more information on how to register is there, and it's always free and open to the public, so feel free to invite your communities. And the way that we keep it that way is through donations from people like you. And I'm going to put a link in the chat for how you can make a donation to support this program and all of our other work at Beacon Hill Friends House. You will be receiving an email through that event management platform that you registered with this PowerPoint from Virginia. And you can also always contact me by emailing, replying to that email. But thank you all so much. We hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday evening.